Thank you very much, and thank you to Brand Innovators for inviting us here. I'm David Tepper, Director of Sales at Verve Group. At Verve, we curate supply as well as audiences for our brands and advertisers alike. And I have here Sarah Nellson. That was an amazing introduction for Sarah. And we're excited to jump into some shopper marketing. So for those who don't know, Sanofi, you oversee the OTC side of Sanofi, brands like Nasacort, Zysol, Allegra, huge brands. How did you get here? Tell us a little bit about your role.
Sure. So I think it was mentioned, I come through a lot of time in CPG, a lot of it with food companies, and spent a good portion of my time in sales and anything really supporting our relationship and our strategic partnerships with retailers. I found myself in the shopper marketing landscape because I have a lot of curiosity for why people make the choices they do when they're in store. So it was one of the things that always caught my eye when I was in sales, and I'm delighted to be able to work in that space now. I did move to Sanofi about 4 years ago. They went through a fairly large transformation, but I'm loving the shift in categories from food over to OTC, different shopper behaviors, but very similar challenges. So.
And before you were at Mondelez, right?
Oh, I was at Mondelez just before this. So I know you had someone from Mondelez up here yesterday. Again, really different dynamics when you're talking about moving from shopper marketing with Oreos to shopper marketing with Allegra. So if you have allergies out there today, please think of us.
So throughout this conference, there's been a lot of talk about media mix and how people are approaching. So how are you approaching your media for shopper marketing? How do you go about? How do you start? Where do you come from?
Sure. So we always start with the objective of the program. I think in this space, everybody in the room we work hard to have a really solid brief and a really great understanding and alignment of what we're trying to do with our shopper marketing. We are very often working to align to the national brand strategies, but in a way that is seamless for that retailer experience. So that involves a deeper understanding of how people view our categories in those individual retailers, and our agency does a really nice job of helping bring together that shopper journey and those touch points for us to plan with.
That's great. And how has the rise of these retail media networks, how has that changed the equation for you? Because you've been in shopper marketing for a long time, and I'm sure that this has been a huge change for you guys.
It's been a big change. I mean, I think it wouldn't be a topic of conversation without the growth trajectory that it's on and the changes that it's driven, I think, for everybody, traditional shopper marketers and traditional brand owners and people who are in traditional media, right? So for us, what it really means is it's added some layers to our thinking around shopper marketing. These are new avenues for us to make sure we're incorporating and exploring in our shopper marketing programs. I will tell you that anything that we run as a shopper program always has an underlay of retail media. There are some programs that are very retail media forward, but we're also looking at how can we drive traffic to a certain retailer or even into that category a little bit more seamlessly. So it's a balance of the retail media spend and sometimes third-party spend.
Got it. Are there any programs that you've done recently that you're proud of in that space or that come to mind? Is there any part of retail media that's working better or worse for you?
Yeah, I think we've spent a lot of time actually as we've engaged in retail media. In the last couple of years, what we've worked hard to do is optimize our search strategy first, making sure that the digital store, the digital shelf is seen, that it is visible, that the content scores are high. We've spent a lot of time there. The follow-up to that is more in my typical wheelhouse where the marketing campaigns come in and those pulse periods. And we've had, in fact, it's probably up right now. If you were to go to walmart.com, we're really proud of an allergy solution program that's running right now with Walmart, that includes, outside of our own business, it also includes some eye drops, and it includes other vendors, Filtrete air filters. So if you're an allergy sufferer, you're not just shopping for our products, you're shopping for other products as well. And the retailer has really been excited about this. So I think for us, it's a combination. Shopper marketing has always been where the brand meets the shopper with the retailer's support and leverage. And I think this program really, at least so far from what we're seeing, it's kind of meeting all those metrics. I'm sorry to interrupt. It does have this interesting balance also of a really strong retail media component supported with traffic driving measures, third-party elements and tactics to drive people to the on-platform components. So it's a balance.
And where did that program come from? Like, was that developed internally at Sanofi, or because you're talking about a lot of different parties involved?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Because we as a company have 3 different allergy brands, the conversation about how you go to a retailer and talk about the category in the season and how you grow the category is much more effective and much more seamless if you can take that full category as opposed to brand to brand to brand. And so this is one of those spaces where commerce marketing maybe differs a little bit from your national brand campaigns. We're coming forward then to the retailer with something that really talks to their whole allergy category and anybody that's an allergy shopper, versus our national campaign, which is going to be very Allegra specific. But that whole campaign was developed. We basically said so here's the salesperson in me. We need to win the season, right? Like you got to win the season. You need to make sure that your volume and sales are strong. Walmart is clearly a large retailer. What is our best approach to that in season? And for us, it was definitely that category approach, not only for OTC, but for the build the basket opportunity with the complementary categories.
So, and do you do that you did that with allergy. Have you done that with any of your other brands? Because you deep dive in a bunch of categories. Right.
So we've done a few. I would say we are making sure that where we do it, they are time intensive to pull together multi-manufacturer programs, make sure you're getting out of them in the retail environment what you would want to. I wouldn't say, I think programming from an annual perspective should always be a blend. But yes, there are other programs that are out there that we've been building on. We run cross-brand programs with, these are also allergy programs, but we are partnering in some places with Kimberly-Clark for Kleenex, right? So allergy products and Kleenex. So it's a mix of the right partner at the right retailer in some places. And it's beyond allergies. So we would certainly participate in, we have digestive health category. You'll see Zantac 360 pop up in multi-branded programs around food occasions. So think Super Bowl, think Memorial Day. You'll see it pop up in those ways as well.
So backing out of retail media, are there other trends that you're seeing in shopper marketing more generally? Go ahead.
Sure. So I think shopper marketing is continuing to evolve. There's an interesting moment happening around self-care that is great if you're in our categories, and we are in not only OTC but in some personal care spaces, and the conversation around self-care and wellness has been a pretty big trend in shopper marketing. I would also say influencers. I know we had people up here talking social earlier today, and this is not I won't say this is new, but for us, we've had to jump through a lot of hoops internally to make influencers work in some of the regulatory environment we face with OTC. And it's been fantastic to see how it works when it works, and also what level of influencer you need to be appropriate in the shopper marketing environment. Because, nationally we have great partnerships with Shaq for Icy Hot, for example. We don't necessarily need that. We have had influencer partnerships at Walmart with some NCAA, athletes that have worked really hard for us. And so getting to the right level, and in some cases really focusing in on, this isn't necessarily influencer, but using the actual ratings and reviews from Amazon or Walmart.com as your content. It speaks to some authenticity around the brand to get some real user feedback and actually push that out in front, as opposed to making people search for it.
So that brings me to, I wanted to discuss, are there other, so obviously influencer, that comes with its own. If you want, we can go down that more. I'm wondering about measurement and any other challenges that you're seeing in shopper in general. It doesn't have to be within retail, but in general.
Sure. So I don't know that I have a lot that's new here versus what's already been said necessarily, but what I'll tell you is for us on Shopper, we consider ourselves to be a little bit lower funnel. We are, by our nature, as we partner with the retailers, we are in a more purchase moment environment. I do think that the measurement is a challenge. I would say for us, getting recaps, making sure that the measurements as we go across tactics, across vendors, across programs is something you can consistently evaluate against each other is a challenge. And, I know there are some models for shopper marketing, MMMs out there, but the level of input needed and background needed to be in those is pretty intense, and we're not there yet. So for us, I would tell you that we still lean in heavily on sort of top line results and leverage for what we're getting for our programming, and then anything above benchmarking is really what we're still using. I do think I kind of want to point this out though. I've done shopper marketing for a while. Shopper marketing at Sanofi is only a couple of years old, so I think in other companies, they have a little bit more history for shopper marketing events and programs that's informing their decisions.
So you brought up the funnel.
I did bring it up. I did.
And there was a couple of times today they've brought up mid-funnel and lower funnel actions versus top funnel. I know that, maybe top funnel stuff isn't necessarily totally in your purview, but I'm wondering how you as an organization think about the balance of, you're doing a lot at that lower funnel, making sure those people convert when they're already in the market, but how do you think about?
So
and please give up all your trade secrets.
I was going to say, we're all friends. It is an ongoing conversation where the messy gray in the middle continues to be where there's some tension, where shopper marketing and retail media ends up off platform. There's a lot of conversation around whether that's duplicative to the national media environment. I do want to pause and step back just as we think about the funnel. The group that was on stage earlier brought up a great point about the role of upper funnel and brands needing to stay in the business of upper funnel and fight for that in spite of ROI. I'm a huge believer in that. I think that having strong awareness, lower funnel conversion activity is a tough place to build trust for your brand. You're really in a purchase moment. You're really in here's a little bit of what makes us different. If you need to educate about your product with a shopper, you need to be able to do that without adding the filter or the layer of the retailer in between, I think. And I think if you need to build your brand in that way, that trust, you really need to do that maybe almost outside of that retail environment. I think that's why you see Walmart and Target bringing direct-to-consumer brands into store. They've built the trust, and now you want to have that trust come into your store. So I think that upper funnel is super important. I think where we live in that middle, lower funnel space is, again, it's about making sure that you are delivering the performance that in the best possible way that you can deliver it. And the measurement that goes along with that becomes, I've had a couple conversations here today, actually, just being able to prove out that you are driving a purchase-oriented action is more important in some cases for the evaluation of our programs than a CPM or an impression. And so we are internally having lots of conversations around the KPIs between those upper funnel and lower funnel. And then the messy middle of the funnel is an interesting space where I think if you're doing shopper marketing or retail media, your content is we expect our content, we build our content to look and feel like that retailer. And I think you could be served something from the national brand. Awareness of Allegra, it's key allergy season. If you have allergies, you may be getting served these ad units right now. But you may also get served something that talks about not just, hey, buy Allegra, it's allergy season, pollen counts are high. It becomes a little bit closer to that purchase component when we add on top, okay, the next ad unit could be Allegra is available at your local Walgreens. Don't forget to stock up. It's similar but not the same. You might be hitting the same shopper, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think it's hard to measure. I think that's where the big debate is. Who do you give credit to the sale for? But the reality is that is not a bad consumer experience or shopper experience.
So so you're bringing up this was in a panel before, so maybe media that would have sat with a media group before versus a shopper marketing group. How are you guys balancing that? If there is a call to action to go to store, does that fall in your purview, or is it?
Ooh, that's dicey. I had a conversation with one of our integrated marketing leaders, where when we started to talk about having something like a shop now or a push to store as part of the ad unit, could that then be national media? Because everything that any dollar spent in marketing is to drive a sale, was the comment that was made. So that commerce media couldn't really differentiate because we were trying to drive the sale. I really do think there is a bit of a difference there. I think everything should, I think you should make it shoppable. I think everything should be shoppable if it makes sense in the context in which it's being served. I don't know why you would make it harder for a shopper to buy something. If they happen to get the national brand campaign ad and it has a shop now, then great, you've just saved them a step. They'll love it. But I don't know that means there's then not a reason for the retail media or the retailer specific piece. So I wouldn't say that one negates the other. The national buy absolutely still lives with the national team. We determine retail media, and in fact, we do a segmentation exercise that helps us identify the spend by retailer in each category, and a lot of it is based on traffic.
Interesting. And so this is a media buying summit. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering if you have any advice for media buyers as to what, in your space, what are you seeing as undervalued, overvalued? And I've learned from this actually that a lot of the retail media networks don't break out necessarily different parts of the media plan. They just deliver to you totals. Are you okay with that? Would you like to see more transparent? I'm guessing yes, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would be in good company to say, yes, more transparency, more standardization on the measurement of retail media is something that right now, the way companies are staffed and are funding retail media is appropriate. There's a lot of growth there. There's growth in e-commerce. It makes sense. There is going to be a point of diminishing returns at some point where it becomes too complex, or you're trying to get, there's an 80-20 rule to how far you can actually make it go. So I'm not sure if that was actually your question. I'm sorry, but there's an element of complexity to the measurement and the transparency of it. There are various retail media scorecards out there, by the way. I mean, there are several companies or agencies who've put them together. They're pretty valid, but I would also say every retail media group that I have come in contact with, they are building like crazy. And they're building like crazy to try to add in the value if it's not already there for the CPGs. They don't want to lose the momentum they have. And I think that's only good for everybody, if I can be honest. If they can build in tools, if they can build in, I want to say channels or tactics, if they can add to what they offer in a way that's transparent and measurable, I don't think that's a bad thing or necessarily even something to be threatened by with national media. I actually hope it lets us measure things all together and really get more clarity.
Got it. I love that, actually. From our previous conversation, and I think you started off this conversation saying that you have a sales background. I'm wondering how you feel, like, how does that help you? Like, how has that helped you get where you are?
I approach this world, this landscape that I deal in from a retailer and a shopper first approach. And I don't play a lot of favorites. I've called on a lot of retailers. They all have a reason to be and their own proposition. It's very interesting to me as I've shifted into OTC how differently some brands show up as you go retailer to retailer. And there's meaning there. There's a real, I don't know, that's the way that we talk a lot about targeting, but you feel a big difference when you're actually walking a Dollar General versus a Walgreens versus a Kroger versus a Walmart. There is a huge difference in that shopping experience. And I think that from my sales experience is what's probably helped me the most. Is I will always tell you, if you're going to, this is not necessarily a shopper marketing thing, but it does end up there sometimes. If you're going to put something in store, you need to see it in store before you put it out there. So if you're a brand and you're looking to change your packaging, or you want to put in-store signage, like, get a mock-up of it and go walk it into a store and make sure it shows up the way you expect it to show up. We can do a lot of things digitally right now, but that in-store shopper experience never ceases. Like, there's always something that is identified there. So I am in a room of media buyers, and I will tell you my first love was probably in-store. I love the evolution, and I love how interesting it is that people make choices differently now. I can tell you, we do a lot of our business with CVS and Walgreens, OTC drugs, right? There are a lot of people standing in those aisles looking at the ratings and reviews on Amazon as they're trying to figure out which products to buy. It's a really interesting shopper experience in the world we live in today. So I think it's fascinating, and I think the sales lens has just helped me a lot, because that's what it comes down to.
My personal experience, walking the shelves, like you said, I, like a lot of people out there, probably have gotten sick a lot in the past 6 months. And the amount of packaging that when you're sick and you walk that aisle and it says severe cold or flu, and you have one of those two things, I think the personalization that has come to the OTC, I know it's been like small incremental changes, but calling it out, saying, this is now for flu. When you have the flu, I'm way more apt to buy that product because I have the flu and I want to feel better.
Yes. Yeah. And I wish there was a way. We all of us, I think, in OTC are looking for a way to help people with product selection. There is again, I'll just say part of what we do is the difference in content for media, in-store, online, mobile, wherever it is. I was talking to Digital Out of Home earlier. You need to have creative that is done for that is made for that space. And this is a great example because on your own screen, your package looks great. You've done your claim sort, you know exactly what people think is the most important, that number one doctor recommendation. You go to the shelf, every product has a number one doctor recommendation or pharmacist recommendation or, I don't know, Dr. Oz recommendation, I'm making it up, but like everybody's got something. You're not differentiated anymore. So it might work for the digital shelf. For the physical shelf, it actually doesn't work as hard for you. So you have to think a little bit differently about what does your creative need to be to stick out in that landscape of 300 items in a 4-foot set.
Are there any, and tell me if you don't want to answer this, are there any brands outside, it doesn't have to be in your category, that you feel like are doing a great job? I'll call out when Danone, and I said it right, Danone, launched their digestive health one, I can't remember what it's called, Activia. It was all green, and it stuck out like, when my wife told me she wanted Activia, I knew that was Activia because it was green and everything else in the category was blue. Are there any things that are on shelf that you think, any other brands that you feel like are really doing a great job?
There are several. In OTC, some of the newer launches that have come out that have made a big splash in the last couple of years, not our products. So again, I'll pretend I'm not on video, but there have been some fascinating and really well done launches in the topical pain space. One of them is a switch called Voltaren that absolutely blanketed the market. They got great displays. They absolutely, I think, did exactly what they were hoping to do when they launched in the US. I will say this also, I recently was standing in line to pick up a prescription at CVS. I happened to be in the fem care aisle. There was a fabulous display in CVS and packaging showing the differentiation of Midol products. Now I have to tell you, Midol seems very old school to me. Like the brand itself, I don't think of as being current. Their display and their packaging was simple and it stood out and it was really easy to shop sitting on shelf. So I would just say, yes, there are, and go walk a store. Some of it's, I can't walk a store normally anymore, so.
My last question, shopper marketing. How do people get into it? Do you love it? How do you recommend people get into it? If you do, tell us a little bit about what your feelings are on the space and how people should if they should get involved.
I love it. I think it is. I think you get into it from a number of avenues. I think if you're a marketer and you really are jazzed about this sort of thing, the physical space, the in-store space, dealing with the retailers and the nuance of the retail environment, if that's a piece of your CPG experience that you like, it's valuable. It's a really valuable resource to have brand marketers come into shopper marketing. I don't think that got really loud all of a sudden. But I don't think I'm necessarily typical in having mostly a sales background. But I would say salespeople make great shopper marketers too, for the reason that they understand what it can bring to the retailer. I think that is a piece that if I'm looking at the group in the room and you're a brand marketer, one of the things I would say about retail media, if you're in those retail media negotiations or trying to come up with decisions about it, don't forget to leverage it for something. If you're negotiating retail media and it's all about CPMs and impressions, it should be about that. But it should also be about the retailer and something else that they might be able to do for your business if they're asking for a greater investment. That's something that you can get from a retail media exchange that you may not be able to get from a national media exchange. So don't forget to consider that retailer lens on retail media and make that a piece of it. So that wasn't part of the question you asked, but it's I would tell you that I love being in shopper marketing. It seems like a natural evolution to the career I've had so far. I don't know where I'll go from here, but it's been a ride.
It's currently its own discipline. Do you think that the shopper marketing discipline will merge with other disciplines, or will it always remain like its own like section of large consumer products?
That's an interesting conversation. I hope that it becomes like a piece of the traditional marketing discipline. Like that would be my hope, is that it becomes viewed as a capability for brand marketers in general. The same way the media team in the room is, everybody's grappling with retail media. I would hope brand marketers spend some time grappling with shopper marketing as well. I hope so.
That's it. Should we open the floor up for questions? Oh, we're on. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.